What if 1 hour a day could change your life? Emily Harper sat hunched over her kitchen table, the dim light of her phone casting a blue glow across her tired face. It was 1:17 a.m. in her cramped apartment in Grove City, Ohio, a small town just outside Columbus where the world seemed to move slower, but her problems never did. The air smelled faintly of burnt coffee and the cheap lavender candle she'd lit to mask the stress that clung to every corner of the room. A stack of unpaid bills teetered on the table, their red, past due, stamps glaring like accusations in the flickering light. Tucked under a chipped coffee mug was the worst of them, an eviction notice, its bold letters screaming that she had 30 days to pay up or get out. Emily's thumb hovered over her phone screen, scrolling through X, her one escape from the chaos of her life. She wasn't looking for inspiration, she was looking for distraction. But then, a post stopped her cold. Elon Musk's 1-hour rule. Dedicate 1 hour every day to learning something new or chasing your passion. In 30 days, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. The words were bold, almost taunting, posted by some self-proclaimed life coach with a handle like. The post was blowing up, with thousands of likes and comments from people claiming they'd turned their lives around by following this simple rule. One guy said he'd learned to code and landed a tech job. A woman claimed she'd started a bakery from her kitchen. Emily snorted, her breath stirring a stray strand of chestnut hair that had escaped her messy bun. "Yeah, right," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ancient fridge in the corner. But the question lingered, nagging at her like an itch she couldn't scratch. What if? What if 1 hour a day could pull her out of this mess? What if it could give her a way to breathe again, to stop feeling like she was drowning in a life she hadn't chosen? At 32, Emily was a single mom who'd been fighting to keep her head above water since she was 19. She worked at a print shop in Columbus, a job that paid just enough to cover rent and groceries but never enough to get ahead. Her daughter, Lily, was 15 now, a bright but rebellious teenager who seemed to slip further away with every passing day. Just hours ago, they'd had another fight, over what, Emily could barely remember. Something about Lily's messy room, or maybe it was her grades. It had ended the way their fights always did, with Lily shouting, "You don't get it, Mom. You're always stressed," and slamming her bedroom door so hard the walls shook. The words had cut deeper than Emily wanted to admit, slicing through the fragile armor she'd built around her heart. She glanced at the fridge, where a faded photo was pinned under a magnet shaped like a sunflower. It showed her and Lily at the Franklin County Fair 5 years ago, both grinning with cotton candy staining their lips blue. Lily's eyes sparkled back then, full of trust and love. Emily's smile was wide, unburdened by the weight of the world. That was before she'd given up her dream of being an artist, trading her sketchbooks for spreadsheets and her paintbrushes for a time clock. She'd been good once, good enough to win a local art contest in high school, good enough to dream of a career in graphic design. But life had other plans, and now her drawing tablet sat collecting dust in a closet, a relic of a version of herself she barely recognized. Emily's eyes flicked back to the X post. The comments were a flood of hope and hustle, people sharing stories of transformation. "I started writing a novel, 1 hour a day. Now I'm published," one user wrote. "This rule got me out of debt," another claimed. Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to believe it, but hope felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Still, the idea of Elon Musk's name attached to it gave it weight. The man built rockets and electric cars, for God's sake. If he swore by this rule, maybe there was something to it. Maybe it was her shot to stop the freefall. She leaned back in her chair, the wood creaking under her weight, and rubbed her eyes. The apartment was a mess, dishes piled in the sink, Lily's sneakers strewn by the door, a half-finished grocery list scribbled on a napkin. It was a snapshot of her life, chaotic, overstretched, and barely holding together. She thought of the eviction notice, the $2,000 she owed in back rent, the way her boss at the print shop had started dropping hints about streamlining the team. She thought of Lily, who deserved better than a mom who was always one step away from breaking. Emily's throat tightened, and she blinked back the sting of tears. She was so tired, tired of scraping by, tired of fighting with her daughter, tired of feeling like a failure. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm in." She grabbed a spiral notebook from the counter, its pages dog-eared and filled with grocery lists and Lily's old doodles of cartoon cats. Flipping to a blank page, she pressed her pen hard against the paper, as if the act of writing could anchor her to this decision. In bold, shaky letters, she wrote, 30 days. 1 hour rule. Graphic design. It wasn't just a whim, it was a promise. She'd always loved design, even if she hadn't touched her tablet in years. She'd taught herself the basics of Photoshop in high school, back when she dreamed of creating album covers or movie posters. Maybe this was her chance to reclaim that spark, to build something new. But as she set the notebook down, doubt crept in like a shadow. What if she failed? What if she was too old to start over, too broke to take risks, too tired to keep up? The eviction notice loomed like a guillotine, reminding her how little room she had for mistakes. Her job barely paid enough to cover the basics, and freelance design gigs were a pipe dream when she hadn't touched a design program in a decade. And then there was Lily. How could Emily justify spending an hour a day on herself when her daughter needed her? The thought twisted like a knife in her gut. Her phone buzzed, pulling her back to the present. A new comment had popped up on the X post, "This changed my life. Don't give up." The words hit her like a lifeline, fragile but real. She scrolled through more comments, each one a tiny spark of possibility. People from all over, Chicago, Miami, small towns like hers, were sharing their stories, their struggles, their wins. For the first time in months, Emily felt a flicker of connection, like she wasn't alone in this fight. She tapped the screen, her fingers trembling as she typed, "I'm trying Elon Musk's 1 hour rule for 30 days. Here goes nothing." She hesitated, then added, "Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?" Her thumb hovered over the post button, her heart pounding like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. She hit send, and the post went live, her words floating out into the digital void. Emily leaned back, exhaling a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The apartment was still quiet, the bills still unpaid, the eviction notice still glaring. But for the first time in a long time, she felt something else, a spark, faint but stubborn, like a match struck in the dark. She didn't know if 1 hour a day could change her life, but she was willing to find out. As she closed her eyes, the question from the X post echoed in her mind, what if 1 hour a day could change your life? She didn't have an answer yet, but she was about to start looking for one. And in the back of her mind, another question lingered, quieter but sharper, what if I'm not enough? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emily Harper woke to the blare of her alarm, a harsh buzz that cut through the gray morning light seeping into her Grove City apartment. It was 6:30 a.m., and the world outside was still cloaked in the quiet chill of an Ohio spring. She groaned, her body heavy with the kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix, and slapped the snooze button. The notebook on her nightstand stared back at her, its bold words from the night before, 30 days. 1 hour rule. Graphic design, both a promise and a challenge. For a moment, she let herself lie still, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering if she'd made a mistake. 1 hour a day sounded simple, but her life was anything but. She dragged herself out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold linoleum floor, and shuffled to the kitchen. The eviction notice on the fridge was the first thing she saw, its red ink like a wound that wouldn't heal. She ignored it, grabbing a mug and starting the coffee maker, its gurgle a familiar soundtrack to her mornings. As the smell of cheap coffee filled the air, her mind drifted back to the X post that had sparked this crazy idea. What if 1 hour a day could change your life? The question felt like a dare, one she wasn't sure she was brave enough to take. But to understand why Emily was even considering it, you had to know where she'd come from, and what she'd lost along the way. Emily hadn't always been this tired, this weighed down by life. Growing up in Grove City, she'd been the girl with big dreams and a sketchbook always tucked under her arm. In high school, she'd spent hours in the art room, her hands smudged with charcoal, creating drawings that made her teachers whisper words like potential and scholarship. She'd won first place in a county-wide art contest at 17, a watercolor of the Scioto River at sunset that still hung in her old high school's library. Back then, she'd dreamed of moving to Chicago or New York, studying graphic design, maybe working on movie posters or album covers. She'd imagined a life where her art was her legacy, not just a hobby. But life had a way of rewriting plans. At 19, Emily got pregnant. The father, a charming but unreliable musician named Ryan, left town before Lily was born, promising to figure things out but never calling again. Emily didn't have time to mourn him. She dropped out of community college, where she'd been taking art classes, and took a job at a diner to pay for diapers and formula. Her mother, Diane, a no-nonsense nurse who valued stability over dreams, had been furious. "You threw away your future for a boy who didn't care," Diane had said, her words sharp as broken glass. Emily hadn't argued. She'd been too busy surviving. Raising Lily alone had been a whirlwind of sleepless nights and small victories. Emily remembered the first time Lily drew a lopsided heart in crayon, beaming up at her with those big hazel eyes. Those moments kept her going, even when the bills piled up and the dreams faded. She took a job at the print shop when Lily was 5, hoping it would be a step towards something creative. But it was just grunt work, sorting orders, fixing jammed machines, dealing with customers who didn't care about her name, let alone her talent. The years blurred together, each one stealing a little more of the girl who'd once believed she could change the world with a paintbrush. Now, at 32, Emily felt like a shadow of that girl. Her apartment was a testament to her struggle: mismatched furniture, a couch with a tear covered by a throw blanket, a dining table that doubled as her desk. Her drawing tablet, a gift from her high school art teacher, sat buried in a closet under a pile of winter coats. She hadn't touched it in years, not since Lily was little and she tried to freelance on the side, only to be crushed by rejection after rejection. "Not quite what we're looking for," the emails always said. Eventually, she'd stopped trying. Her relationships were another casualty of her exhaustion. Lily, once her little shadow, had grown into a teenager who seemed to resent her. Their fights were frequent now, sparked by anything from dirty dishes to Emily's late nights at work. Last night's argument still stung. "You're always stressed," Lily had yelled, her voice cracking with frustration. "You don't even see me anymore." Emily had wanted to scream back that she was doing it all for her, for the rent, the groceries, the school supplies, but the words had stuck in her throat. Instead, she'd let Lily storm off, the slam of the bedroom door echoing like a gunshot. Emily's best friend, Sarah, was a lifeline, but even that felt strained. Sarah was a kindergarten teacher, always sunny and optimistic, with a cozy house and a husband who cooked dinner every night. They'd been close since high school, but Emily felt the gap widening. Sarah's life was stable, while hers was a constant crisis. They still met for coffee at Brood Awakening, the local cafe with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus, but Emily often cancelled, too overwhelmed to leave the house. Sarah would text, "You okay? Need to talk," and Emily would reply with a vague "I'm fine," even when she wasn't. Then there was Diane, her mother, who lived just 10 miles away but might as well have been on another planet. Diane had never forgiven Emily for throwing away her potential, and their conversations were a minefield of criticism and guilt. "You need a real job, Emily," Diane would say, her voice clipped. "Art doesn't pay the bills." Emily hadn't told her about the eviction notice. She couldn't bear the lecture, or the pity. As the coffee maker sputtered to a stop, Emily poured a mug and sat at the table, the notebook open in front of her. She traced the words 1-hour rule with her finger, her heart thudding. The idea was simple: dedicate 1 hour a day to learning something new or chasing a passion. For her, that meant graphic design. She'd always loved the way art and technology could blend, creating logos, posters, websites that told a story. But the thought of starting again, after so many years, felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she failed Lily, or herself? She glanced at the photo on the fridge, Lily's cotton candy smile pulling at her heart. Emily had always told her daughter to chase her dreams, but what kind of example was she setting? A mom who worked a dead-end job, who snapped under pressure, who let her own dreams gather dust. The eviction notice loomed in her peripheral vision, a reminder that time was running out. She couldn't keep living like this, scraping by, fighting with Lily, feeling like a failure. Her phone buzzed, and she checked it, expecting a bill reminder or a work email. Instead, it was a notification from X. Her post from last night: "I'm trying Elon Musk's 1-hour rule for 30 days. Here goes nothing," had gotten a few likes and comments. "You got this," someone wrote. "I'm in Ohio too. Keep us posted," another said. Emily's lips twitched into a small smile. Strangers believed in her. Maybe she could believe in herself, just a little. She opened her laptop, an old Dell that took forever to boot up, and searched for free graphic design tutorials. The screen flickered as she clicked on a YouTube video titled "Photoshop for Beginners, Create Your First Logo." The instructor's voice was upbeat, promising that anyone could learn with practice. Emily felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. She grabbed a pen and started jotting notes, her handwriting messy but determined. But then she heard it, a creak from the hallway. Lily's door opened, and her daughter shuffled out, her dark hair tangled and her hoodie wrinkled from sleep. "You're up early," Lily said, her voice flat, avoiding Emily's eyes as she grabbed a box of cereal. "Yeah," Emily said, closing the laptop instinctively, like she was hiding a secret. Couldn't sleep. She wanted to tell Lily about the 1-hour rule, about the flicker of excitement she felt, but the words wouldn't come. Not after last night's fight. Lily poured cereal into a bowl, the clink of the spoon loud in the quiet kitchen. "Whatever," she muttered, heading back to her room. The door clicked shut, softer this time, but it still felt like a wall between them. Emily's chest ached, but she opened the laptop again, the tutorial still paused on the screen. She wasn't just doing this for herself, she was doing it for Lily, to show her that dreams were worth chasing, even when life tried to bury them. The clock on the wall ticked closer to 7 a.m. She had to leave for work soon, but she had a few minutes. She pressed play on the video, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and possibility. 1 hour a day. That's all it would take. Maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. Emily Harper sat at her kitchen table, the faint glow of her laptop screen cutting through the early evening shadows of her Grove City apartment. It was 7:15 p.m., and the apartment was quiet except for the distant thump of music leaking through Lily's closed bedroom door. The eviction notice on the fridge seemed to pulse in the corner of her vision, a constant reminder of the $2,000 she owed and the ticking clock of 30 days. But tonight, Emily was determined to start something new. She'd committed to Elon Musk's 1-hour rule, 1 hour a day to chase her passion for graphic design, and tonight was day one. Her notebook, open to the page where she'd scrawled 30 days. 1-hour rule. Graphic design felt like a contract she'd signed with herself, one she wasn't sure she could keep. She opened Photoshop, the program loading sluggishly on her ancient Dell laptop. The interface was both familiar and foreign, a maze of tools and menus she hadn't touched since her community college days. She'd found a free online tutorial on YouTube, Photoshop Basics, design a simple logo, and the instructor's cheerful voice filled the room as she clicked play. "Let's dive in and create something amazing," the instructor said, and Emily felt a flicker of excitement, like a kid opening a fresh sketchbook. But as she followed along, trying to draw a basic shape with the pen tool. Her lines wobbled, and the cursor seemed to have a mind of its own. "Come on," she muttered, her brow furrowing as she erased yet another jagged attempt. The clock on the wall ticked closer to 8 p.m. She'd promised herself 1 full hour, but already she felt the weight of her day pressing down. She'd worked a 9-hour shift at the print shop, her hands still smelling faintly of ink and toner. Her boss, Greg, had been in a mood, snapping at her for a misaligned flyer that wasn't even her fault. Then there was the grocery run she'd squeezed in before dinner, the total coming to $87, money she didn't really have. And Lily. Always Lily. Their fight from the night before lingered like a bruise, her daughter's words, "You're always stressed," echoing in her mind. Emily had wanted to check in with her tonight, maybe bridge the gap, but Lily had barely looked at her during dinner, picking at her mac and cheese before retreating to her room. Emily shook her head, refocusing on the tutorial. She managed to create a passable circle, filled it with a gradient, and added a drop shadow. It wasn't much, but it was something. She leaned back, a small smile tugging at her lips. For the first time in years, she'd made something with her own hands, not just followed orders at work. The feeling was fragile, like a soap bubble, but it was real. Maybe this could work, she thought, her heart lifting. Maybe 1 hour a day could be her lifeline, a way to claw her way out of this mess. But then the music from Lily's room got louder, the bass thumping through the thin walls. Emily's smile faded. She glanced at the clock, 7:45 p.m. She still had 15 minutes, but guilt gnawed at her. Shouldn't she be spending this time with Lily? Helping with homework, or at least trying to talk? She closed her eyes, picturing her daughter's face, those hazel eyes that used to light up when Emily read her bedtime stories. Now, those eyes were guarded, angry, and Emily didn't know how to fix it. The 1-hour rule felt selfish, like she was stealing time from her daughter to chase a dream that might not even pan out. She pushed the thought away and opened X on her phone, scrolling to the post she'd made last night. "I'm trying Elon Musk's 1-hour rule for 30 days. Here goes nothing." To her surprise, it had gotten more traction, 20 likes, a handful of comments. "Rooting for you from Cleveland," one person wrote. "What are you learning?" "Keep us posted," said another. Emily's chest warmed. Strangers believed in her, even if she didn't fully believe in herself. She typed a quick update, "Day 1, survived my first hour of Photoshop. It's harder than I remember, but I made something. Anyone else trying this?" She hit post, feeling a spark of connection to the world beyond her apartment. But the spark was short-lived. The door to Lily's room swung open, and her daughter appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. "You're still on your computer?" Lily said, her tone sharp. "You've been glued to that thing all night." Emily's stomach twisted. "It's just for an hour," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm trying something new. Learning graphic design again." Lily snorted, grabbing a soda from the fridge. "Graphic design? Seriously, Mom? You're, like, 30. Isn't it a little late for that?" The words hit like a slap. Emily's fingers froze on the keyboard, the tutorial paused on a frame showing a sleek logo she'd never be able to create. "I'm 32, she said quietly, "and it's never too late to try something new." "Whatever," Lily said, rolling her eyes. "You're always busy with work or bills or whatever. Now you're, what, playing artist? Good luck with that." She turned and headed back to her room, the door slamming behind her. Emily stared at the empty doorway, her throat tight. She wanted to run after Lily, to explain that this wasn't just about her, it was about building a better life for both of them. But the words wouldn't come, just like they hadn't last night. She looked at her laptop, the half-finished logo mocking her. Doubt crept in, cold and heavy. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe she was too old, too out of practice, too buried under the weight of her responsibilities to chase a dream. She was about to close the laptop when her phone buzzed with another X notification. A new comment on her post: "Hey, I'm Jake, a designer in Columbus. Saw your post, stick with it. Photoshop's tough at first, but you'll get the hang of it. DM me if you need tips." Emily's breath caught. A stranger, someone local, was reaching out. She clicked on Jake's profile, a graphic designer with a portfolio of vibrant logos and website mockups. His bio read, "Helping creatives find their spark." She hesitated, then sent a quick message, "Thanks for the support. I'm totally lost with Photoshop. Any beginner tips?" Almost instantly, Jake replied, "Start small. Focus on one tool a day, pen tool, layers, whatever. Practice makes progress. You got this." Emily read the message twice, a flicker of hope reigniting. Maybe she wasn't alone in this. Maybe there was a community out there, people who understood what it meant to start over. The clock hit 8:15 p.m. Her hour was up, but she didn't want to stop. She played the tutorial again, her fingers moving with a little more confidence. She created another shape, this time a star, and tweaked its colors until it looked almost professional. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She saved the file, naming it Day 1 Star, and felt a small surge of pride. It was a start. But as she closed the laptop, the silence of the apartment pressed in. Lily's door was still shut, the music quieter now but still a barrier. Emily's eyes drifted to the eviction notice, then to the photo of her and Lily at the county fair, their smiles frozen in a happier time. She'd taken a step tonight, but the road ahead felt impossibly long. Could 1 hour a day really change her life, or was she just setting herself up for another failure? The question hung in the air, unanswered, as she stood and turned off the kitchen light, the weight of her world settling back onto her shoulders. Emily Harper leaned against the counter at the print shop, the hum of the ancient Xerox machine filling the air with a rhythmic drone. It was day 5 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and her eyes burned from late nights spent hunched over her laptop, wrestling with Photoshop tutorials. The shop smelled of ink and overheated paper, a scent that clung to her clothes and reminded her how far she was from the creative life she'd once dreamed of. Outside, the Columbus skyline was a faint gray smudge against a cloudy Ohio sky, visible through the shop's smudged windows. Emily glanced at her phone, hidden behind a stack of flyers she was supposed to sort. A notification from X glowed on the screen, "Nice work on day 1. Keep it up," from Jake, the graphic designer who'd messaged her after her first post. A small smile flickered across her face, but it faded as her boss, Greg, stormed out of his office. "Harper." Greg's voice was sharp, cutting through the drone of the machines. He held up a flyer, its colors misaligned, the text blurry. "What is this garbage? This was supposed to go out to the client yesterday. You trying to make us look like amateurs?" Emily's stomach dropped. I didn't print that batch," she stammered, her cheeks flushing. "I think it was from the night shift." She'd been meticulous with her work, double-checking every order since the 1-hour rule had sparked a flicker of pride in her. But Greg didn't care about excuses. "Doesn't matter," he snapped, tossing the flyer onto the counter. "Client's pissed, and I'm not taking the fall. Fix it by noon, or don't bother coming in tomorrow." He turned away, muttering something about streamlining the team, a phrase that had been haunting Emily for weeks. She stared at the crumpled flyer, her hands trembling. The shop was understaffed, the machines were outdated, and mistakes were inevitable, but Greg always pinned them on her. She wanted to argue, to tell him she was doing her best, but the words stuck in her throat. Losing this job wasn't an option, not with the eviction notice taped to her fridge, demanding $2,000 she didn't have. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to nod. "I'll fix it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The rest of the morning was a blur of reprinting flyers, her fingers smudged with toner as she raced to meet Greg's deadline. By noon, she'd salvaged the order, but her nerves were frayed, and doubt gnawed at her. The 1-hour rule was supposed to be her way out, a chance to build a better future, but it felt like a pipe dream when she could barely keep her head above water. Last night, she'd spent her hour creating a mock-up logo for a fictional coffee shop, a design she was secretly proud of. She'd even posted it on X, tagging Jake and the design community she'd found. The response had been encouraging, solid start. Jake had commented, and a few others had liked it. But now, standing in the print shop with Greg's threat ringing in her ears, that small win felt like a drop in an ocean of failure. When her lunch break finally came, Emily slipped into the break room, a cramped space with a wobbly table and a microwave that smelled of burnt popcorn. She pulled out her phone and opened X, hoping for a distraction. To her surprise, Jake had sent her a direct message, "Hey, saw your coffee shop logo, great use of color. Ever thought about pitching to real clients? There's a local bakery looking for a rebrand. I can send you the details." Emily's heart skipped. A real client? The idea was thrilling but terrifying. She'd never pitched professionally before, not since her failed freelance attempts years ago. Still, Jake's encouragement lit a spark of hope. She typed back, "Thanks. I'd love the details. Nervous, but I'll give it a shot." She spent the rest of her break drafting a pitch for the bakery, using her mock-up logo as inspiration. Her fingers flew across her phone, sketching out ideas for a warm, inviting brand, think rustic fonts, earthy tones, a logo that felt like a cozy morning with coffee and scones. For the first time all day, she felt alive, like the girl who used to sketch sunsets by the Scioto River. When she hit send on the pitch email, her heart pounded with a mix of fear and excitement. Maybe this was it, her first step toward something bigger. But the high didn't last. When she got home that evening, the apartment was a mess, and Lily was sprawled on the couch, scrolling on her phone instead of doing homework. "Hey," Emily said, trying to keep her tone light. "How was school?" Lily shrugged, not looking up. "Fine." Emily bit her lip, the tension from last night's fight still lingering. She wanted to tell Lily about the bakery pitch, about the 1-hour rule, but the words felt too fragile, like they might shatter under her daughter's indifference. Instead, she started dinner, spaghetti, the cheapest meal she could make, hoping the routine would ground her. She was halfway through boiling water when her phone pinged with an email. Her heart leapt, thinking it was the bakery. Instead, it was a polite but curt rejection, "Thank you for your submission, but we've decided to go in a different direction." Emily stared at the screen, the words blurring as her eyes stung. She'd poured her heart into that pitch, stayed up past midnight tweaking the design, imagining it on a bakery sign. And just like that, it was over. The doubt that had been simmering all day boiled over. What was she doing, chasing a dream at 32? She wasn't a designer. She was a single mom with a dead-end job and a daughter who barely spoke to her. The 1-hour rule felt like a cruel joke, promising change but delivering nothing but disappointment. She was about to slam her laptop shut when a loud bang echoed from the bathroom, followed by the unmistakable sound of rushing water. "No, no, no," Emily muttered, rushing to the door. Water was pooling on the linoleum, seeping from a burst pipe under the sink. Her heart sank as she grabbed towels, trying to stem the flood. The landlord was notoriously slow to fix things, and this would cost money she didn't have, money she'd hoped to save for the back rent. She called the landlord, her voice shaking as she explained the situation, but he brushed her off, saying he'd send someone, eventually. By the time she hung up, the bathroom floor was a sopping mess, and her savings, already stretched thin, would take another hit. She sank onto the couch, her hands trembling, the weight of the day crashing down. The eviction notice, Greg's threat, the rejected pitch, the burst pipe, it was too much. She wanted to give up, to crawl into bed and let the world win. But then her phone buzzed again. Another X notification. Jake had posted in the design community group, "Shout out to for her coffee shop logo." First attempts are never easy, but she's got potential. Keep going. A few others chimed in with likes and comments. Love the vibe. Don't stop now. Emily's throat tightened, a mix of gratitude and determination stirring in her chest. These strangers, this community, saw something in her that she'd almost forgotten. She opened her laptop, the waterlogged towels still at her feet, and pulled up Photoshop. She had 20 minutes left in her hour. She wasn't done yet. As she tweaked her logo, adding a subtle texture to make it pop, Lily appeared in the doorway, her expression softer than usual. "What's with the flood?" she asked, glancing at the bathroom. "Pipe burst," Emily said, not looking up. "I'll handle it." Lily hesitated, then said, "You're still doing that design thing?" Emily nodded, bracing for another jab. But Lily just stood there, watching. "It's kinda cool," she said quietly, almost too quiet to hear, before turning back to her room. Emily froze, her heart lifting. It wasn't much, but it was something, a crack in the wall between them. She saved her work, naming the file Day 5 Hope, and closed her laptop. The pipe was still leaking, the rent was still due, and the rejection still stung, but for the first time in days, Emily felt a flicker of resilience. 1 hour. 1 step. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was enough to keep going. The air in Emily Harper's Grove City apartment was thick with the damp, musty smell of the still leaking bathroom pipe, even though she'd stuffed every towel she owned under the sink to stem the flood. It was day 8 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and the kitchen table was her makeshift command center, her old Dell laptop glowing with a half-finished Photoshop design, a spiral notebook filled with scribbled tutorial notes, and a mug of cold coffee that had been reheated twice. Outside, the Ohio sky was a heavy gray, the kind that promised rain but never delivered, mirroring the weight in Emily's chest. The eviction notice on the fridge loomed like a storm cloud, its $2,000 demand a constant reminder of how close she was to losing everything. Emily rubbed her eyes, trying to focus on the design she'd been working on during her hour, a logo for a fictional bookstore, with elegant script and a soft green palette that reminded her of the library she'd escaped to as a kid. She'd posted her progress on X last night, and the encouragement from her newfound design community, especially Jake, the Columbus designer who'd become her unofficial cheerleader, had kept her going. But doubt was a relentless shadow. Her boss's threat at the print shop still echoed, "Don't bother coming in tomorrow," and the bakery pitch rejection stung like a fresh wound. Was she fooling herself, thinking 1 hour a day could change her life? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Emily's heart sank. She wasn't expecting anyone, and unexpected visitors in her world usually meant bad news, another bill collector, or worse, the landlord. She pushed her laptop aside and opened the door to find her mother, Diane, standing on the welcome mat, her arms crossed and her lips pursed in that familiar look of disapproval. Diane was 58, her dark hair streaked with gray, her nurse's scrubs crisp despite a 12-hour shift. She carried a reusable grocery bag, likely filled with practical gifts like canned soup or dish soap, things she thought Emily couldn't manage on her own. "Mom," Emily said, stepping aside. "What are you doing here?" Diane didn't smile. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check on you." Her eyes swept the apartment, lingering on the pile of damp towels by the bathroom door and the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. "Looks like you're managing just fine," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Emily's shoulders tensed. She hadn't told Diane about the eviction notice or the burst pipe, knowing exactly how this conversation would go. "It's been a rough week," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "Want some coffee?" Diane set the grocery bag on the counter, pulling out a pack of paper towels and a box of oatmeal. "You don't need coffee. You need a plan, Emily. This place is falling apart, and you're still playing with your computer like it's high school art class." Emily's jaw tightened. She'd made the mistake of mentioning the 1-hour rule to Diane over the phone a few days ago, hoping for a shred of support. Instead, her mother had scoffed. I'm not playing, Emily said, her voice sharper than she intended. I'm learning graphic design. It's a real skill, Mom. Something I can build a future with. Diane raised an eyebrow, unpacking the groceries with deliberate precision. A future? Emily, you're 32, a single mother with a teenager who needs you. You don't have time for hobbies. You need a second job, not a pipe dream. The words hit like a punch, echoing Lily's jab from a few days ago, you're too old for that. Emily wanted to scream that this wasn't a hobby, that it was her trying to claw her way out of a life that felt like quicksand. But arguing with Diane was like arguing with a brick wall. Instead, she turned back to her laptop, pretending to adjust her design. I'm doing what I can, she said quietly, her fingers trembling on the trackpad. Diane sighed, softening slightly. I just want you to be realistic, honey. Art didn't pay the bills when you were 19, and it won't now. You've got Lily to think about. As if on cue, Emily's phone buzzed with a new email. She glanced at it, expecting another bill, but her heart leapt when she saw the subject line, freelance opportunity, accepted. It was from a small coffee shop in Columbus, one Jake had connected her with through the X-Design community. They loved her coffee shop logo mock-up and wanted her to create a full set of branding materials, logo, business cards, and a menu, for $200. It wasn't much, but it was her first paid gig in years. A rush of pride surged through her, washing away some of the sting from Diane's words. She typed a quick reply, accepting the job, her fingers shaking with excitement. Mom, look, Emily said, turning the phone to show Diane the email. I got a freelance job. A real one. It's small, but it's a start. Diane barely glanced at the screen. $200. That won't even cover your electric bill. You need to focus on real work, Emily. Something stable. Emily's excitement deflated, but she clung to the spark of hope the gig had ignited. She wanted to tell Diane about the X community, about Jake's encouragement, about the logo she'd poured her heart into. But her mother was already moving on, handing her the oatmeal like it was a lifeline. Make sure Lily eats breakfast, Diane said, heading for the door. And fix that pipe before it ruins the floor. As the door clicked shut, Emily sank into a chair, the grocery bag mocking her from the counter. She opened her laptop, pulling up the coffee shop logo. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and someone believed in it enough to pay her. That had to count for something. She posted an update on X. Day 8, landed my first freelance gig. Small, but I'm stoked. Thanks for the support. The replies came quickly, that's huge. Keep killing it. And Jake messaged her directly, congrats. First of many. Let me know if you need feedback on the project. For a moment, Emily felt like she was part of something bigger, a community that saw her potential when her own mother couldn't. But the moment of triumph was shattered by a call from Lily's school. Emily's heart pounded as she answered, the principal's voice calm but firm. Ms. Harper, Lily didn't show up for classes today. We tried calling her, but she's not answering. Do you know where she is? Emily's breath caught, panic flooding her veins. What? She left for school this morning. She remembered Lily grabbing her backpack, muttering a half-hearted goodbye. Had she been lying? Emily's mind raced, picturing her daughter wandering the streets of Columbus, or worse. I'll find her, she said, her voice shaking as she hung up. She grabbed her keys and coat, her laptop still open to the coffee shop logo, now a distant thought. The apartment felt suffocating, the damp towels and unpaid bills closing in. She called Lily's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Lily, where are you? Call me back. Please. Her voice cracked as she left the message, fear twisting her gut. She thought of their fights, Lily's accusations, you don't even see me anymore. And guilt washed over her. Had she been so caught up in the 1-hour rule that she'd missed the signs? Was she failing her daughter, just like Diane always implied? Emily drove through Grove City's quiet streets, the gray sky pressing down like a lid. She checked the park where Lily sometimes hung out, the coffee shop where she met her friends, the library, anywhere she could think of. Rain began to fall, streaking her windshield, and her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The freelance gig, the ex-community, the spark of hope, it all felt meaningless if she couldn't keep Lily safe. As she turned onto Main Street, her phone buzzed. A text from Lily, "I'm fine. At Jess's house. Needed a break." Emily's relief was immediate, but it was laced with anger and hurt. Jess was Lily's best friend, a good kid, but skipping school was a new low. Emily typed back, "Stay there. I'm coming to get you." She pulled over, her heart still racing, and took a deep breath. The 1-hour rule had given her a glimpse of possibility, but now it felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Not when her daughter was slipping away, not when her world was crumbling. She glanced at her phone, Jake's message still open, first of many. She wanted to believe it, but as she drove toward Jess's house, the rain pounding harder, she couldn't shake the fear that she was fighting a losing battle. Emily Harper stood in her Grove City apartment, the morning light filtering through the blinds and casting striped shadows across the cluttered kitchen table. It was day 15 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and the air smelled faintly of damp towels and the lingering bitterness of yesterday's coffee. Her laptop was open, displaying a digital poster she'd designed for the Grove City Art Fair, a local event she'd impulsively signed up for after a late-night conversation with Jake, her online design mentor. The poster was vibrant, bold blues and greens swirling around a stylized tree, with clean typography announcing her participation. It was the best thing she'd created in years, and it terrified her. The eviction notice on the fridge, now creased from being handled too many times, reminded her of the stakes, $2,000 due in 2 weeks, or she and Lily would be out on the street. Emily's fingers hovered over the laptop's trackpad, her heart pounding. The art fair was tomorrow, and she'd committed to a small booth to display her graphic design work, logos, mock-up posters, and business cards she'd spent her nightly hours perfecting. It was a leap, one that felt both exhilarating and reckless. She hadn't shown her art in public since high school, and the thought of strangers judging her work made her stomach churn. But Jake's words from their last message echoed in her mind, "You're ready for this, Emily. Show the world what you've got." The ex-design community had rallied behind her, too, with comments like, "That poster is fire," and "Can't wait to see your booth." Their support was a lifeline, but it didn't quiet the voice in her head whispering, "What if you fail?" The past week had been a roller coaster. The burst pipe in the bathroom was still a problem, the landlord promising a repair soon, while water stains spread across the linoleum. Her small freelance gig for the coffee shop was progressing. She'd sent the first draft of the logo, and the client loved it, but the $200 payment wouldn't arrive for weeks, too late to help with the rent. And then there was Lily. The memory of picking her up from Jess's house after she skipped school still stung. They'd barely spoken on the drive home, Lily staring out the window while Emily fought back tears. "I just needed a break, Mom," Lily had said, her voice small but defiant. Emily had wanted to hug her, to promise things would get better, but the words felt hollow when she was barely holding it together herself. Now, as she packed prints of her designs into a plastic bin, Emily felt the weight of her decision to join the art fair. It wasn't just about showing her work. It was about proving to herself, and maybe to Lily, that she could be more than a stressed-out single mom working a dead-end job at the print shop. She glanced at the fridge, where the photo of her and Lily at the county fair hung next to the eviction notice. That smiling girl, sticky with cotton candy, deserved a mother who didn't give up. Emily took a deep breath, zipped her jacket, and headed out, the bin of prints tucked under her arm. The art fair was her chance to take a stand, but the fear of failure clung to her like a second skin. The Grove City Art Fair was a riot of color and sound, set up in the town's community park under a sky that had finally cleared to a crisp blue. Booths lined the grassy paths, their canopies fluttering in the breeze, offering everything from pottery to oil paintings to hand-stitched quilts. The air smelled of kettle corn and fresh-cut grass, mingling with the faint tang of paint from a nearby face-painting station. Kids darted between stalls, their laughter mixing with the strum of a local folk band playing on a small stage. Emily's booth was at the edge of the fair, a modest table covered with a navy tablecloth she'd borrowed from Sarah, her best friend. Her prints were arranged carefully, each one framed in cheap but neat black frames she'd found at a thrift store. The poster she'd designed hung proudly at the back, catching the eye of passers-by. Setting up had been a frantic blur, with Emily fumbling to pin her prints and praying the breeze wouldn't knock them over. Sarah had stopped by earlier, her sunny energy a balm to Emily's nerves. "This looks amazing, Em," she'd said, squeezing Emily's arm. "You're gonna kill it." Sarah's optimism was infectious, and for a moment, Emily believed her. She'd even gotten a text from Jake, "Break a leg at the fair. Post pics on X, I wanna see that booth." She'd snapped a quick photo and posted it, her hands shaking as she typed, "Day 15, halfway through the 1-hour rule, and I'm at the Grove City Art Fair. Terrified but here." The likes and comments poured in, each one a small boost to her courage. But as the fair opened and people began to wander through, Emily's nerves returned full force. A middle-aged couple paused at her booth, eyeing her bookstore logo print. "Nice colors," the woman said, but her husband shrugged. "Kinda basic," he muttered, and they moved on. Emily's smile faltered, her cheeks burning. She wanted to crawl under the table, but she forced herself to stand tall, adjusting a frame that didn't need adjusting. "It's just one opinion," she told herself, but the doubt was loud, amplified by her mother's voice in her head, "You need a real job, not a pipe dream." Then, a young woman in a flannel shirt stopped, her eyes lighting up as she studied Emily's coffee shop logo. "This is so cool," she said, her voice genuine. "Did you design all these?" Emily nodded, her throat tight. "Yeah, just started getting back into it," she said, trying to sound confident. The woman, who introduced herself as Mia, bought a print for $20 and asked for Emily's business card. "You should do this full-time," Mia said before walking away. Emily's heart soared, the $20 feeling like $1,000,000. She tucked the bill into her pocket, a tangible reminder that someone saw value in her work. The moment of hope was fleeting. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily, not coming to the fair. "At Jess's. Don't freak out." Emily's stomach dropped. She'd hoped Lily would show up, maybe see her mom in a new light, but the text felt like another wall between them. She typed back, "Please, Lily, just for an hour. I'd love for you to see this." No response. The folk band's music faded into the background as Emily's mind raced. Had she pushed Lily too far by focusing on the 1-hour rule? Was she neglecting her daughter for a dream that might never pay off? As the afternoon wore on, more people stopped by her booth. Some offered praise, others polite smiles, but no one else bought anything. Emily's nerves frayed further when a local artist, a man with a gray beard and a critical eye, lingered at her table. "Interesting concepts," he said, his tone measured, "but the execution's a bit rough. Keep practicing." His words were kind but cutting, and Emily felt the familiar sting of not being good enough. She nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, she was crumbling. The art fair was supposed to be her big moment, but it felt like a spotlight on her flaws. Just when she thought she couldn't take another critique, a woman approached, her sleek blazer and confident stride standing out among the casual fairgoers. "I'm Claire," she said, extending a hand. "I run a small gallery in Columbus. Your work caught my eye, there's potential here." Emily's breath caught. Claire studied her prints, pointing out the bold lines in her poster. "It's raw, but it's got heart," she said. "Ever thought about exhibiting in a gallery? I could mentor you," help refine your portfolio. Emily's mind reeled. A gallery? It was beyond anything she'd dared to dream. I'd love that, she stammered, her voice shaking with gratitude. Claire handed her a business card, promising to follow up. As she walked away, Emily felt a rush of possibility, like the sky had opened up. Maybe the 1-hour rule was working. Maybe she was closer to a new life than she thought. But as the fair wound down and Emily packed up her booth, her phone remained silent. Lily hadn't responded, and the weight of their distance settled back in. The $20 in her pocket and Claire's card were victories, but they felt small against the looming eviction notice and her daughter's absence. Emily drove home through the fading light, the art fair's vibrant colors lingering in her mind, but so did the critic's words and Lily's text. She'd reached the halfway mark of her experiment, but the road ahead felt steeper than ever. Could 1 hour a day really change her life, or was she chasing a dream that would cost her the one person who mattered most? Emily Harper stood at the edge of the Grove City Art Fair, her booth now half-packed as the late afternoon sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the park. The air was thick with the sugary scent of kettle corn and the fading notes of the folk band's final song, but Emily's chest felt heavy, like the weight of the day had settled into her bones. It was day 15 of her 1-hour rule experiment, the halfway mark of her 30-day commitment to learning graphic design, and the art fair had been her boldest step yet. Her table was still scattered with prints, logos, posters, business cards she'd poured her heart into, but the mixed reactions from fairgoers gnawed at her confidence. The $20 from her one sale felt like a small victory, but the memory of the gray-bearded artist's critique, the execution's a bit rough, stung like a fresh cut. She adjusted a frame, her fingers lingering on the bookstore logo she'd designed during her nightly hours. It was one of her favorites, with its soft green palette and elegant script, but the couple who'd called it basic, and the artist's backhanded compliment made her question everything. Was she good enough? Could 1 hour a day really turn her into a designer, or was she deluded, as her mother, Diane, had implied? The eviction notice waiting at home, demanding $2,000 she didn't have, loomed in her mind, a ticking clock that drowned out the fair's fading bustle. But then there was Claire, the gallery owner who'd stopped by her booth just hours ago. Her words, "There's potential here," had been a lifeline, a spark of hope that kept Emily from packing up and running home. Claire's business card was tucked in her pocket, its edges already worn from Emily's nervous fingers. A gallery mentorship was a dream she hadn't dared to entertain, not since her high school days when she'd sketched sunsets by the Scioto River and believed in her own talent. She'd posted about it on X, her fingers trembling as she typed, "Day 15, survived the art fair. Got a mentorship offer from a gallery owner. Scared but excited. Thanks for the support." The replies had flooded in, "That's huge, Emily. You're killing it." And Jake had messaged her directly, "A gallery? That's next level. Let's talk portfolio prep." The X-Design community's encouragement felt like a warm blanket, wrapping her in possibility. Still, the high was fragile. As Emily folded her tablecloth, her phone buzzed with a notification. She hoped it was Lily, who'd texted earlier that she was at Jess's house and wouldn't come to the fair. Emily had begged her to stop by, to see her mom trying to be something more, but Lily's silence had been deafening. The new message wasn't from her daughter. It was from the coffee shop client, praising her latest logo draft, "Looks great. Can you tweak the font size? Excited to see the final." Emily's heart lifted. The $200 gig wasn't enough to save her apartment, but it was proof she could do this. She was about to reply when a shadow fell over her booth. "Nice setup," a voice said, and Emily looked up to see a man in a flannel shirt, his arms crossed as he studied her prints. He was another artist from the fair, his booth filled with abstract paintings that had drawn a crowd. "You're new to this, huh?" he said, his tone more curious than unkind. "Yeah," Emily admitted, forcing a smile. "Just getting back into design." He nodded, picking up her coffee shop logo. Bold colors, but the composition's a little off. Needs more balance. Keep at it, though, you've got an eye. He set the print down and walked away, leaving Emily frozen. His words were meant as advice, but they felt like another nail in the coffin of her confidence. She wanted to scream that she'd only been at this for 2 weeks, that she was trying her best, but the fair was closing, and she was alone with her doubts. She packed the last of her prints into a plastic bin, her movements mechanical. The fair had been a mix of highs and lows, Claire's offer, the $20 sale, but also the critiques and Lily's absence. As she loaded the bin into her beat-up Honda, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Sarah, her best friend. How'd the fair go? So proud of you. Emily typed a quick reply, it was okay. Got a mentorship offer. Tell you more at coffee tomorrow. But her heart wasn't in it. She wanted to call Lily, to bridge the gap that had grown between them, but the memory of their last fight stopped her. You don't even see me anymore. Lily had shouted, and Emily feared she was right. When she got home, the apartment was dark, the damp smell from the burst pipe stronger than ever. Lily wasn't there. Emily's stomach twisted as she checked her daughter's room, empty, the bed unmade, a hoodie tossed on the floor. She called Lily's phone, but it went to voicemail. Lily, it's Mom. Where are you? Please call me back. Her voice cracked as she hung up, panic rising like a tide. She texted Jess's mom, who confirmed Lily had left hours ago. She said she was going home, the reply read, and Emily's heart sank. The apartment felt suffocating, the eviction notice glaring from the fridge, the damp towels a reminder of her crumbling world. She sank onto the couch, her bin of prints untouched by the door, and tried Lily's phone again. Nothing. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios, Lily on the streets, lost, or worse. She thought of their fights, the way Lily's eyes had gone from trusting to guarded over the years. Had the 1-hour rule made her so selfish that she'd missed her daughter slipping away? She grabbed her keys, ready to drive to every place she could think of, Jess's house, the park, the mall, but her phone buzzed with an X notification. Jake had posted in the design community, big props to for rocking the art fair. A gallery mentorship is a huge deal. Keep pushing. The comments piled up, inspiring. You're proof the 1-hour rule works. And for a moment, Emily felt anchored, like she wasn't alone. She messaged Jake, thanks for the support. Rough day, Lily's gone, and I'm freaking out. He replied instantly, I'm so sorry. Want me to share a post to help find her? You've got this, Emily. Stay strong. The offer, though kind, couldn't ease the panic. Emily drove through Grove City's quiet streets, the neon glow of gas stations and diners blurring through her tears. Rain began to fall, tapping the windshield like a metronome. She checked the park, the coffee shop, the library, every place Lily loved, but found nothing. Her phone stayed silent, each unanswered call to Lily twisting the knife deeper. The art fair's highs, Claire's card, the $20 sale, felt distant now, overshadowed by the fear that she'd lost the one person who mattered most. As she pulled into the library parking lot, her phone buzzed. A text from Lily, I'm okay. Needed space. At the old treehouse by the creek. Emily's relief was immediate, but it was laced with dread. The treehouse was a crumbling relic from Lily's childhood, a place they used to escape to when things were simpler. Emily drove to the creek, her heart pounding, the rain now a steady drumbeat. She'd reached the halfway mark of her experiment, and Claire's mentorship offered a glimpse of a new future, but none of it meant anything if she couldn't reach her daughter. As she parked near the creek, the treehouse's silhouette barely visible in the dusk, Emily braced herself for what she'd find, and what she might lose. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The rain fell in heavy sheets, drumming against the windshield of Emily Harper's beat-up Honda as she navigated the slick streets of Grove City, Ohio. It was day 15 of her 1-hour rule experiment, the halfway mark of her 30-day quest to reclaim her passion for graphic design, but none of that mattered now. Her daughter, Lily, was out there somewhere, and the text she'd received, "I'm okay." Needed space. At the old treehouse by the creek. Was both a relief and a fresh stab of fear. The treehouse, a crumbling relic from Lily's childhood, was tucked along a wooded creek on the edge of town, a place they'd once called their secret hideout. Emily's hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, as she drove through the gathering dusk, the neon glow of gas stations and diners smearing into streaks of color through the rain. The Grove City Art Fair, just hours ago, felt like a distant memory. The $20 sale, Claire's mentorship offer, the ex-community's encouragement, all of it had been a fleeting high, now drowned out by the panic coursing through her veins. The eviction notice on her fridge, the $2,000 she owed, the burst pipe still leaking in her apartment, they were problems she could face later. Right now, Lily was all that mattered. Emily's phone sat silent in the passenger seat, its screen dark after her unanswered calls to her daughter. The memory of their fights, Lily's sharp words, "You don't even see me anymore," twisted in her gut like a knife. Had the 1-hour rule made her so selfish that she'd driven her daughter away? The streets of Grove City were quiet, the rain keeping most people indoors. Emily passed the community park, where the art fair's booths were now being dismantled, their colorful canopies sagging under the downpour. She remembered standing at her booth, her heart soaring when Claire, the gallery owner, had seen potential in her work. But the sting of the gray-bearded artist's critique, the executions a bit rough, and the couple's dismissal of her logo as basic lingered, feeding her doubt. What if she was chasing a dream that would cost her Lily? The thought was unbearable, and she pressed harder on the gas, the Honda's tires splashing through puddles. The creek was a 10-minute drive from town, down a narrow road lined with maples and sycamores, their leaves heavy with rain. Emily's headlights cut through the gloom, illuminating the gravel path that led to the treehouse. She parked near the creek, the water rushing high and muddy from the storm. The treehouse was barely visible, a sagging wooden platform nestled in the branches of an old oak, its weathered boards slick with rain. Emily's heart pounded as she stepped out, the cold rain soaking her jacket and plastering her hair to her face. She called out, "Lily. Are you there?" Her voice was swallowed by the roar of the creek and the patter of rain on leaves. She climbed the muddy bank, her sneakers slipping on the wet grass. The treehouse was a relic from simpler times, built by a neighbor when Lily was 6. They'd spent hours there, eating peanut butter sandwiches and drawing with crayons, Lily giggling as Emily invented stories about forest fairies. Now, the ladder was splintered, the platform warped, but a faint glow flickered through the cracks, a flashlight, maybe, or a phone. "Lily." Emily called again, her voice cracking with desperation. She climbed the ladder, each rung creaking under her weight, her hands trembling as she gripped the wet wood. Inside the treehouse, Lily sat huddled in a corner, her hoodie soaked and her dark hair clinging to her cheeks. Her phone was propped against a board, its screen casting a pale light across her face. She looked up, her hazel eyes wide but guarded, and for a moment, Emily saw the little girl who'd once trusted her completely. "What are you doing here?" Lily said, her voice sharp but trembling. "I told you I'm fine." "You're not fine," Emily said, crawling into the cramped space and sitting across from her daughter. The treehouse smelled of wet wood and mildew, the rain seeping through gaps in the roof and dripping onto the floor. "You ran away, Lily. You scared me to death. Why didn't you answer my calls?" Lily hugged her knees, looking away. "I just needed to be alone. You're always so busy with your stupid design stuff. You don't even care what's going on with me." The words hit like a punch, echoing Emily's worst fears. She wanted to reach out, to pull Lily into a hug, but the space between them felt like a chasm. "I care, Lily," she said, her voice breaking. Everything I'm doing, the design, the late nights, it's for us. To make a better life. I'm trying so hard. Lily's eyes flickered with something, anger, maybe, or hurt. You're trying for you, she said. You're obsessed with this 1-hour rule thing, like it's gonna magically fix everything. But it's not. You're still stressed, we're still broke, and now you're dragging me into it. Emily's throat tightened. She thought of the art fair, the thrill of Claire's offer, the $20 in her pocket. She thought of the ex-community, Jake's encouragement, the coffee shop gig. They were small victories, proof that the 1-hour rule was working, but they felt meaningless in this damp, crumbling treehouse with her daughter glaring at her. I'm doing this for you, too, Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I want you to see that you can chase your dreams, even when it's hard. I want to be someone you're proud of. Lily's expression softened for a split second, a crack in her defenses. I don't need you to be some big artist, she said quietly. I just need you to be my mom. The words were a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in the storm. Emily reached out, her hand hovering, and Lily didn't pull away. For a moment, they sat in silence, the rain drumming on the roof, the creek rushing below. Emily wanted to believe they could fix this, that she could balance her dreams with being the mother Lily needed. She was about to speak when her phone buzzed in her pocket, shattering the moment. It was a text from her landlord, pipe repair scheduled for tomorrow. You're still behind on rent. Pay by end of month or you're out. Emily's heart sank, the eviction notice's $2,000 demand flashing in her mind. She'd hoped the art fair would bring in more money, but the $20 and Claire's promise of mentorship were all she had. Lily saw the change in her expression and pulled back, her walls going up again. What now? She asked, her voice sharp. It's nothing, Emily lied, slipping the phone back into her pocket. Let's go home, okay? We'll talk there. But Lily shook her head, grabbing her phone and climbing down the ladder before Emily could stop her. I'll walk to Jess's, she said, her voice muffled by the rain. I need space. Lily, wait. Emily called, scrambling after her, but her daughter was already disappearing into the trees, her hoodie a dark blur in the rain. Emily stood frozen, the cold seeping into her bones, her heart pounding with fear and guilt. She'd found Lily, but she hadn't reached her, not really. The treehouse creaked above her, a hollow reminder of the bond they'd once shared. Her phone buzzed again, this time with an X notification from Jake. Hey, you okay? Any word on Lily? Emily typed a quick reply, found her, but it's rough. Thanks for checking in. But the words felt empty. As she drove home, the rain hammering the roof of her car, Emily's mind churned. The 1-hour rule had given her a glimpse of a new life, Claire's mentorship, the coffee shop gig, the ex-community support, but it couldn't fix everything. Not the eviction notice, not the burst pipe, and not the distance between her and Lily. The creek's muddy waters flashed in her headlights, a mirror to her turmoil. She'd survived the art fair, taken a step toward her dreams, but now she faced a new crisis. Could she keep chasing her passion without losing her daughter? As she pulled into her apartment complex, the rain unrelenting, Emily braced herself for the fight to bring Lily home, and to hold on to the hope that had carried her this far. The rain had slowed to a drizzle as Emily Harper pulled into the driveway of Jess's house, a tidy split-level home in a Grove City cul-de-sac, its porch light glowing like a beacon in the gray dusk. It was day 15 of her 1-hour rule experiment, the halfway mark of her 30-day quest to reclaim her passion for graphic design, but the thrill of the Grove City Art Fair, Claire's mentorship offer, the $20 sale, felt like a distant dream. Her heart was heavy with the weight of Lily's absence, the text from her daughter, I'll walk to Jess's. I need space, replaying in her mind like a broken record. The old treehouse by the creek, where she'd found Lily just an hour ago, had been a painful reminder of how far they'd drifted. Emily's hands trembled as she shut off the engine, the silence in her beat-up Honda deafening without the rain's steady drumbeat. Jess's house was warm and inviting, with flower boxes under the windows and a welcome mat that looked brand new. It was the kind of home Emily wished she could give Lily, not the cramped apartment with a leaking pipe and an eviction notice taped to the fridge. She took a deep breath, her breath fogging in the chilly air, and knocked on the door. Her phone was still silent, no reply from Lily, no follow-up from Claire, though Jake's ex-message, "Hey, you okay?" Any word on Lily offered a faint thread of comfort. The ex-design community had become her lifeline, but it couldn't fill the void of her daughter's anger. Jess's mom, Karen, answered the door, her expression soft but concerned. "Emily, come in," she said, stepping aside. "Lily's in Jess's room. She's okay, just upset." Karen's voice was gentle, but Emily felt the weight of her unspoken judgment. What kind of mother lets her daughter run away? "Thanks for letting her stay," Emily said, her voice tight as she stepped into the warmth of the house. The living room smelled of cinnamon candles, and a family photo hung above the couch, Karen, Jess, and Jess's dad, all smiling at a beach somewhere sunny. Emily's chest ached. She hadn't taken a photo with Lily in years, not since the county fair picture on her fridge, faded and curling at the edges. Karen led her down a hallway lined with Jess's school awards, the kind of achievements Emily wished Lily could have if she weren't so weighed down by their struggles. At Jess's door, Emily hesitated, her hand hovering over the knob. She could hear muffled voices inside, Lily's, low and sharp, and Jess's, soothing. She knocked softly, then pushed the door open. Lily sat cross-legged on Jess's bed, her hoodie damp from the rain, her dark hair falling over her face like a curtain. Jess was beside her, a laptop open to some music streaming site, but she stood when she saw Emily. "I'll give you guys some space," Jess said, slipping out and closing the door behind her. The room was a teenage haven, posters of indie bands on the walls, fairy lights strung above the desk, a pile of colorful pillows on the bed. Lily didn't look up, her eyes fixed on her hands, twisting the drawstrings of her hoodie. Emily's heart pounded, the silence between them heavy with all the things they hadn't said. "Lily," she started, her voice trembling, "why didn't you tell me you were coming here? I was so scared." Lily's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress creaking under her weight. "Talk to me, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I know things have been hard, but running away? That's not okay." Lily's eyes flicked up, flashing with anger. "You don't get it, Mom," she said, her voice raw. "You're never around anymore. It's always work or bills or your stupid design thing. You're so obsessed with this 1-hour rule, you don't even see me." Her words cracked, tears welling in her hazel eyes, and Emily felt like she'd been slapped. "I see you, Lily," Emily said, her own tears spilling over. "Everything I'm doing, the design, the late nights, it's for us. To get us out of that apartment, to give you a better life. I'm trying to be someone you can be proud of." Lily shook her head, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "I don't need you to be some famous designer. I need you to be my mom. You're always stressed, always on your computer. You didn't even notice I was failing math until the school called. You're not there, Mom. Not anymore." The truth of Lily's words hit like a tidal wave, washing away Emily's defenses. She thought of the nights she'd spent on Photoshop, the hours she'd carved out for the 1-hour rule, telling herself it was for their future. But had she been so focused on her dream that she'd missed her daughter's pain? "I'm so sorry," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to make you feel like that. I thought if I could make this work, it would fix everything." Lily looked at her, her expression softening, a crack in the wall between them. "I saw your art fair post on X," she said quietly. "The one about the gallery lady. It's kinda cool, I guess. That you're trying." Her voice was hesitant, but it was the closest thing to approval Emily had heard in months. Emily's heart lifted, a fragile spark of hope igniting. She reached out, her hand brushing Lily's, and this time, her daughter didn't pull away. "I'm proud of you, too," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "You're so strong, Lily, even when I mess up. I promise I'll do better. We'll figure this out together, okay?" Lily nodded, her eyes still wet but her shoulders relaxing. For a moment, they sat in silence, the fairy lights casting a soft glow across the room. Emily felt a weight lift, like she'd finally reached her daughter across the chasm that had grown between them. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start, a fragile reunion that gave her hope they could rebuild. But the moment was shattered by a buzz from Emily's phone. She glanced at it, expecting another X notification, but it was an email from her landlord, lease not renewed due to unpaid rent. "You have until end of month to vacate." Emily's breath caught, her heart plummeting. The eviction notice had been bad enough, but this was worse, they were losing their home entirely. The $2,000 she owed was only the start, now she needed a new place, and her savings were nearly gone, drained by the burst pipe and daily survival. "What's wrong?" Lily asked, her voice sharp with concern, sensing the shift in Emily's expression. Emily forced a smile, slipping the phone into her pocket. "Just work stuff," she lied, not ready to burden Lily with the news. "Let's go home, okay? We'll talk more there." Lily hesitated, then nodded, grabbing her backpack. As they left Jess's room, Emily thanked Karen, her voice hollow. The warmth of the house felt like a cruel contrast to the cold reality waiting for them. Outside, the drizzle had stopped, leaving the air heavy and damp. Emily drove home in silence, Lily staring out the window, the gap between them narrower but still there. The ex-community support, Claire's mentorship offer, the coffee shop gig, they were glimmers of hope, but the landlord's email cast a long shadow. Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel, the neon glow of Grove City's diners and gas stations blurring past. She'd reached her daughter, but at what cost? The 1-hour rule had brought her this far, but now she faced a new crisis, finding a home for her and Lily, while holding on to the dream that had carried her through the past 15 days. As they pulled into the apartment complex, the weight of the unknown pressed down, and Emily wondered if 1 hour a day could ever be enough to save them. Emily Harper sat at her kitchen table, the only light in her Grove City apartment coming from the flickering glow of her old Dell laptop and a single bulb overhead that buzzed faintly. It was 11:47 p.m. on day 18 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and the air was heavy with the damp, mildewy smell of the still unfixed bathroom pipe. The eviction notice on the fridge, now joined by the landlord's email declaring her lease non-renewed, cast a shadow over her every thought. She had less than 2 weeks to find a new place for her and Lily, with barely enough savings to cover a deposit. But tonight, Emily was channeling her fear into her work, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she refined a digital poster for her portfolio, a submission for Claire, the gallery owner who'd seen potential in her at the Grove City Art Fair. The poster was bold, a stylized cityscape of Columbus at dusk, with vibrant purples and oranges blending into the skyline, the Scioto River reflecting the light like a ribbon of fire. Emily had spent her nightly hour, and then some, tweaking every detail, the curve of the lines, the texture of the buildings, the font that announced a fictional art festival. It was the kind of work she'd dreamed of creating in high school, before life, single motherhood, bills, a dead-end job at the print shop, had buried those dreams. Now, with Claire's mentorship offer dangling like a lifeline, Emily was pouring everything into her portfolio, determined to prove she was more than a rough artist with basic designs. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen, and her coffee mug, long cold, sat beside a notebook filled with sketches and notes from YouTube tutorials. The apartment was quiet, Lily asleep in her room after their fragile reunion at Jess's house. Their confrontation had been raw, Lily's words, "I just need you to be my mom," still echoing in Emily's heart. She'd promised to do better, to balance her dreams with being there for her daughter, but the landlord's email had upped the stakes. Losing their home wasn't just a possibility anymore, it was a deadline. Emily's savings, drained by the burst pipe and daily survival, wouldn't cover a new apartment, and her $200 coffee shop gig was still weeks from paying out. She paused, rubbing her temples, and opened X on her phone. The design community had become her anchor, their encouragement a beacon in the storm. Her latest post, Day 15, survived the art fair. Got a mentorship offer from a gallery owner, had racked up likes and comments, with Jake, her Columbus-based mentor, leading the charge. A gallery? That's next level. Let's talk portfolio prep. Tonight, she'd shared a sneak peek of her cityscape poster, typing, Day 18, working late on my portfolio. Feeling the pressure but pushing through. Thoughts? The replies were instant. That skyline is gorgeous. Keep going, you've got this. Jake had messaged her directly, the colors pop. Try adding a subtle gradient to the river, it'll add depth. You're killing it, Emily. Emily smiled, a flicker of warmth cutting through her exhaustion. Jake's feedback was practical, specific, and it made her feel like a real designer, not just a single mom playing pretend. She applied his suggestion, watching the river in her design come alive with a soft gradient that mirrored a sunset. For a moment, she was back in high school, sketching by the Scioto River, her dreams untainted by reality. The memory fueled her, and she worked past her hour, losing herself in the rhythm of creation, adjusting layers, tweaking fonts, perfecting every pixel. But the weight of her reality crept back in. At the print shop, her boss, Greg, had been relentless, piling on extra work since the flyer fiasco. She'd overheard him talking about streamlining again, a word that felt like a guillotine over her job. Losing it would be catastrophic, especially now, with the lease non-renewed. She thought of Lily, sleeping just down the hall, and the promise she'd made to be a better mom. Carving out this hour, sometimes two, felt like stealing time from her daughter, but giving up wasn't an option. Claire's gallery was a chance at a real future, one where she could pay the bills and show Lily what it meant to fight for a dream. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Sarah, her best friend, checking in. How's the portfolio going? Coffee tomorrow at Brood Awakening? Emily's heart lifted. Sarah had been her rock, showing up at the art fair and cheering her on even when Emily doubted herself. She typed back, portfolio's coming along. Coffee sounds perfect. 10 a.m. Sarah's reply was instant, you got it. Bring your laptop, I want to see that cityscape. Emily smiled, the promise of coffee and Sarah's optimism a small but vital spark of hope. She was about to return to her design when a loud drip echoed from the bathroom, a reminder of the pipe that refused to be ignored. Emily groaned, grabbing another towel from the dwindling pile and tossing it onto the wet linoleum. The repair was scheduled for tomorrow, but the cost, another hit to her savings, loomed large. She sat back down, her eyes drifting to the fridge, where the county fair photo of her and Lily hung beside the eviction notice. That smiling girl, sticky with cotton candy, deserved a home, a mother who could provide. Emily's throat tightened, but she opened her laptop again, determined to keep going. As the clock ticked past midnight, Emily saved her cityscape poster, naming it Day 18 Fire. She leaned back, her body aching but her spirit stubborn. The ex-community's support, Claire's offer, Sarah's friendship, they were proof that she wasn't alone. She messaged Jake, added the gradient, looks amazing. Thanks for the tip. Portfolio's due to Claire soon, nervous but excited. His reply came quickly, you're gonna blow her away. Send me the final portfolio when it's ready, I'll give it a look. The encouragement carried her through another hour, her fingers moving with purpose. She started a new design, a business card for Claire's gallery, sleek and modern, with a nod to the vibrant colors she'd used in her poster. It was a risk, designing something for the gallery before Claire had even confirmed the mentorship, but Emily felt a surge of defiance. She was done playing small, done letting doubt win. The 1-hour rule had brought her this far, through the art fair, through Lily's runaway scare, and she wasn't stopping now. But as she worked, the landlord's email gnawed at her. Lease not renewed. She'd have to start looking for a new apartment tomorrow, a task that felt impossible with her bank account hovering near zero. She thought of Lily's words in the treehouse, "I just need you to be my mom," and guilt crept in. Was she pushing too hard, risking too much? The print shop job was her only stability, but it was a dead end, and Greg's threats made it feel like a ticking time bomb. Claire's gallery was a long shot, a dream that might not pay off in time to save them. Emily's phone buzzed again, this time with an X notification. A new comment on her cityscape post, "This is stunning. You're proof the 1-hour rule works. Keep it up." The words, from a stranger in the design community, were a reminder of why she'd started this. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for Lily, for a future where they could both thrive. She saved her work, closed her laptop, and stood, stretching her aching back. The apartment was still a mess, the pipes still leaking, the lease still gone, but Emily felt a fire in her chest, small but fierce. She'd doubled down on her dream, and no matter what came next, she wasn't giving up. As she turned off the light, the cityscape glowed in her mind, a promise that 1 hour a day could still change everything, if she could just hold on. Emily Harper's apartment was a cocoon of light and shadow, the kitchen table bathed in the blue glow of her laptop screen as the clock ticked past 1 a.m. It was day 20 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and the air was thick with the stale smell of coffee and the faint dampness of the bathroom, where the pipe had finally been fixed, though the bill had eaten another chunk of her dwindling savings. The eviction notice and the landlord's email declaring her lease non-renewed sat pinned to the fridge, a constant reminder that she and Lily had less than 10 days to find a new home. But tonight, Emily's focus was on her portfolio for Claire, the Columbus gallery owner who'd offered her a mentorship at the Grove City Art Fair. The stakes were higher than ever, a gallery spot could be her ticket to a real career, but failure could mean losing everything. Emily's eyes burned as she tweaked a digital poster, one of 5 pieces she was preparing for Claire. The design was ambitious, a vibrant depiction of an Ohio autumn, with golden leaves swirling around a rustic barn, the colors bold yet balanced, the typography clean but expressive. She'd spent her nightly hour, often stretching into 2, pouring her heart into this portfolio, each piece a testament to the 1-hour rule's slow but steady transformation. Her coffee shop gig was nearly complete, the client thrilled with her final logo draft, but the $200 payment was still weeks away, useless against the $2,000 she owed in back rent. Claire's gallery was her real hope, a chance to turn her passion into something that could save her and Lily. But the pressure was crushing. Earlier that day, Emily had met Claire at her gallery in Columbus's Short North, a sleek space with white walls and polished wood floors, filled with abstract paintings and modern sculptures. Claire, sharp in a tailored blazer, had been encouraging but blunt. "Your work has heart, Emily," she'd said, studying the cityscape poster Emily had brought. "But a gallery spot isn't just about potential, it's about standing out. Your portfolio needs to be exceptional, polished, cohesive. You're competing with artists who've been at this for years. Can you deliver by next week?" Emily had nodded, her throat tight, but the weight of Claire's words had followed her home. Exceptional. Polished. Cohesive. She was a single mom with a dead-end job, teaching herself Photoshop in stolen hours, not some seasoned artist with a studio. Doubt gnawed at her, amplified by the memory of the art fair critiques, basic, rough, and her mother's voice, "You need a real job, not a pipe dream." But giving up wasn't an option, not with the lease non-renewed and Lily counting on her, even if their relationship was still fragile after their tearful reunion at Jess's house. Emily opened X on her phone, seeking the comfort of her design community. Her latest post, Day 20, portfolio crunch time for the gallery. Feeling the heat. Any tips for standing out? At Jake Creates. Had sparked a flood of replies. Focus on a theme, your Ohio roots are strong, one user wrote. Play with textures to add depth, another suggested. Jake's response was the most detailed, your autumn piece is killer. Try a consistent color palette across all 5 pieces, it'll tie them together. DM me if you want a second pair of eyes. Emily's heart lifted, the community's support like a warm hand on her shoulder. She messaged Jake, thanks. Working on cohesion now. Can I send you my drafts tomorrow? His reply was instant, anytime. You're closer than you think. The encouragement fueled her, and she dove back into her poster, adjusting the color palette to echo the warm golds and cool blues of her other designs. For a moment, she was lost in the work, the world shrinking to the glow of her screen and the rhythm of her clicks. She felt like the girl who used to sketch by the Scioto River, dreaming of a life where art was her legacy. The ex-community, Jake's feedback, Claire's belief in her, they were proof she was on the right path, that the 1-hour rule was working. That spark of hope carried her to Brood Awakening the next morning, where she met Sarah for coffee. The cafe was a cozy haven, its mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus a welcome contrast to the sterile print shop where Emily spent her days. Sarah, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, grinned as Emily opened her laptop to show her portfolio drafts. These are incredible, Sarah said, her eyes wide as she scrolled through the autumn poster. You're gonna blow Claire away. I'm so proud of you. Emily blushed, sipping her latte. Thanks, but I'm terrified. Claire said it has to be exceptional, and I'm barely keeping up. Work's a mess, Lily's still distant, and the lease, her voice trailed off, the landlord's email flashing in her mind. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing her hand. You're doing more than most people could. One step at a time, okay? You've got this. Her words were a lifeline, and Emily clung to them, feeling the weight of her fears lighten just a fraction. They spent an hour brainstorming, Sarah suggesting small tweaks, a bolder font here, a softer gradient there, that made Emily's portfolio feel stronger. For the first time in days, she believed she might pull this off. But the hope was short-lived. At the print shop that afternoon, Emily's exhaustion caught up with her. She'd been up past 2 a.m. working on her portfolio, and her eyes were heavy as she loaded paper into the Xerox machine. Her boss, Greg, was in another mood, barking orders about a rush job for a local real estate firm. Harper, don't screw this up, he snapped, tossing a stack of proofs on her desk. We can't afford another mistake. Emily nodded, her hands shaking as she sorted the proofs. But her mind was split, half on the job, half on her portfolio, Claire's expectations, and Lily's fragile trust. She missed a critical error in the proofs, a typo in the client's phone number, and sent the batch to print. By the time Greg caught it, 500 flyers were ruined, and he was livid. What the hell, Harper, he shouted, his face red as he waved a flyer in her face. This is coming out of your paycheck, and you're on thin ice. One more slip-up, and you're done. Emily's stomach plummeted, her heart racing. Losing her job would be catastrophic, her only source of income, with the lease gone and no new apartment in sight. She apologized, her voice barely audible, and spent the rest of her shift fixing the mistake, her hands trembling with panic. The $200 coffee shop gig, Claire's mentorship, the ex-community, they were all she had, but they weren't enough to pay the bills. Not yet. When she got home, Lily was on the couch, scrolling on her phone, her expression guarded but softer than before. How was work? Lily asked, a rare attempt at conversation. Emily forced a smile, hiding the day's disaster. Fine, she lied, sitting beside her. How about you? How's school? Lily shrugged, but she didn't retreat to her room, a small victory. Emily wanted to tell her about the portfolio, the mistake at work, the lease, but the words felt too heavy. Instead, she pulled out her laptop, showing Lily the autumn poster. What do you think? She asked, her voice tentative. Lily studied it, her eyes lingering on the golden leaves. It's pretty, she said quietly. Like something you'd see in a real gallery. The praise, small but genuine, was a balm to Emily's frayed nerves. As Lily headed to bed, Emily opened her laptop, the portfolio drafts glowing on the screen. The mistake at work, Greg's threat, the lease, they were a storm closing in, but Claire's gallery was her beacon. She messaged Jake, attaching her drafts, portfolio's almost done. Work was rough today, screwed up big time. Scared I'm gonna lose my job. His reply came quickly, hang in there. The portfolio's looking strong. You're tougher than you know. Emily took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The 1-hour rule had brought her this far, but the gamble was bigger than ever. With her job on the line and her home slipping away, she had to make this portfolio count, or risk losing everything she'd fought for. Emily Harper sat at her cluttered kitchen table, the faint glow of her laptop casting shadows across the Grove City apartment. It was 10:32 p.m. On day 23 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and the air was heavy with the stale scent of coffee and the lingering dampness of the recently fixed bathroom pipe. The eviction notice and the landlord's email declaring her lease non-renewed were pinned to the fridge, a constant reminder that she and Lily had just 1 week to find a new home. Her savings were nearly gone, drained by the pipe repair and daily survival, and the $200 from her coffee shop gig was still weeks away. But Emily's focus was on her portfolio for Claire's gallery, a make-or-break chance to turn her passion for graphic design into a real career. She'd spent her nightly hour refining her 5 pieces, posters, logos, and business cards, each one a step closer to the exceptional, polished, cohesive standard Claire demanded. Her latest design, a poster for a fictional music festival, pulsed with energy, bold reds and blues swirling around a stylized guitar, the typography sharp yet playful. Emily had poured her heart into it, staying up past midnight to perfect every detail. The X-Design community had cheered her on, with Jake, her Columbus-based mentor, offering detailed feedback. The energy in this one is unreal. Tweak the spacing on the text, it'll pop even more. His words, along with Sarah's encouragement at their coffee meetup, kept her going, even as exhaustion and doubt gnawed at her. The memory of her mistake at the print shop, ruining 500 flyers and earning Greg's wrath, still stung, his threat of, one more slip-up, and you're done, hanging over her like a guillotine. Losing her job would be catastrophic, especially now, with no new apartment in sight. Emily was about to save her work when her phone buzzed with an email from Claire. Her heart leapt as she opened it. Portfolio looks promising, Emily. I need the final submission by Friday. Make sure it stands out, this is your shot. The words were both a thrill and a weight. Friday was 3 days away, and Emily felt the pressure like a vice around her chest. She messaged Jake on X, Claire's deadline is Friday. Feeling the heat but pushing through. Thanks for the feedback. His reply was instant, you've got this. Send me the final pieces, I'll give them a quick review. The support was a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone. But the next morning, at the print shop, everything unraveled. The shop was a chaos of whirring machines and ink-stained air, with Emily sorting a rush order for a local real estate firm. She was distracted, her mind split between her portfolio and the looming deadline to find a new apartment. As she carried a stack of freshly printed brochures to Greg's office, she overheard him on the phone, his voice smug. Yeah, the client loved the new logo, he said. Told you I could pull it off. Big contract, 6 figures, easy. Emily froze, her blood running cold. The logo. She'd designed a sleek, modern logo for the real estate firm as a practice piece during her 1-hour rule sessions, a bold design with clean lines and a vibrant color scheme. She'd shown it to Greg weeks ago, hoping for feedback, but he dismissed it as not bad for an amateur. Now, as she peeked into his office, she saw it on his computer screen, the exact logo, down to the subtle gradient she'd added. He'd stolen it, passed it off as his own, and landed a major client with it. Her heart pounded, rage and betrayal surging through her. She clutched the brochures, her knuckles white, as Greg hung up and noticed her. What do you want, Harper? he snapped, his eyes narrowing. That logo, Emily said, her voice shaking but firm. It's mine. I designed it. You took it and told the client it was yours. Greg's face hardened, but a smirk flickered at the corners of his mouth. Prove it, he said, leaning back in his chair. You're a nobody, Harper. I've been in this business 20 years. Who's gonna believe you over me? Emily's vision blurred with tears of anger, but she held her ground. It's my design, she said, her voice rising. I have the original files, timestamps, everything. You can't just steal my work. Greg stood, towering over her. Watch your tone, he growled. You're already on thin ice after that flyer mess. Accuse me again, and you're out the door. No severance, no reference. Think about that before you open your mouth. Emily's breath caught, fear mixing with her fury. Losing her job would mean no income, no way to pay for a new apartment, no safety net for her and Lily. She thought of her daughter's words at Jess's house. I just need you to be my mom, and the fragile trust they'd started to rebuild. But the logo was hers, a piece of her heart, created in stolen hours when she dared to dream again. Letting Greg take it was like letting him steal her future. She left his office without another word, her hands trembling as she returned to her station. The rest of her shift was a blur, her mind racing with what to do. When she got home, she opened her laptop and pulled up the logo's original files, timestamps proving she'd created it weeks ago. She messaged Claire on X, her fingers shaking, found out my boss stole one of my designs for a big client. It's mine, but confronting him could cost my job. What do I do? Claire's reply was swift, that's unacceptable. You need to fight for what's yours, Emily. Send me the proof, I'll back you up. Don't let him take your work. Claire's words were a spark of hope, a reminder that she had allies. She messaged Jake and Sarah, too, pouring out the story. Jake replied. That's low. You've got the proof, use it. I can connect you with a designer friend who's dealt with this. Sarah texted, come to my place tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. Their support wrapped around her like a shield, giving her the courage to face what came next. But as she sat at her kitchen table, the apartment silent except for the hum of the fridge, the stakes felt overwhelming. Confronting Greg could cost her job, her only source of income with the lease gone and no new home secured. She thought of Lily, asleep in her room, her quiet praise for the autumn poster, like something you'd see in a real gallery. Emily couldn't let her daughter see her give up, but the risk was paralyzing. She opened her portfolio, the music festival poster glowing on the screen, and added a final touch, a subtle texture that made the guitar sing. It was a small act of defiance, a reminder that this was her dream, her work. Her phone buzzed with a new X comment on her latest post, your passion shines through, Emily. Don't let anyone dim it. The words, from a stranger in the design community, steadied her. She saved her portfolio, naming the file Day 23 Fight, and closed her laptop. The betrayal stung, but Claire, Jake, and Sarah believed in her, and so did the X community. She had proof, she had allies, and she had 1 hour a day to keep fighting. As she turned off the light, the logo's bold lines lingered in her mind, a symbol of what she stood to lose, and what she was determined to reclaim. But with her job on the line and her home slipping away, the gamble had never been higher. Emily Harper stood outside the print shop in Columbus, the morning air sharp with the bite of an Ohio spring. It was day 25 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and her heart pounded like a drum as she clutched a USB drive containing proof of her stolen design. A logo she'd created during her nightly hours, now claimed by her boss, Greg, for a 6-figure real estate contract. The shop's faded sign loomed above her, its chipped paint a stark contrast to the sleek corporate office she'd visit later today, where she planned to pitch her work directly to the client. The eviction notice and non-renewed lease back at her Grove City apartment, demanding $2,000 she didn't have, weighed on her like a stone. With less than a week to find a new home for her and Lily, this confrontation was a gamble that could cost her job, and her future. Inside, the print shop was a familiar chaos of whirring machines and the acrid smell of ink. Emily's hands trembled as she set her bag down, her mind replaying the previous day's betrayal. Greg's smug smirk, his taunting, "Prove it," and his threat to fire her if she pushed back had kept her awake all night. But Claire's words, "Fight for what's yours," and the support from Jake and Sarah had steeled her resolve. She'd spent her 1-hour rule session preparing for this moment, compiling timestamps, original files, and screenshots of her logo's creation, all saved on the USB drive. Her portfolio for Claire's gallery was nearly complete, due tomorrow, but today was about reclaiming what was hers. Emily knocked on Greg's office door, her pulse racing. He looked up from his computer, his eyes narrowing as she stepped inside. The stolen logo glowed on his screen, a bold design with clean lines and a vibrant gradient she'd crafted with care. "What now, Harper?" Greg said, leaning back in his chair, his voice dripping with impatience. Emily took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "That logo," she said, pointing at the screen. "It's mine. I designed it, and you stole it for the real estate client. I have proof, original files, timestamps, everything. You can't take credit for my work." Greg's smirk faltered, but he recovered quickly, standing to tower over her. "You're out of line," he growled. "I told you yesterday, nobody's gonna believe you. You're a part-time wannabe, Harper. Keep this up, and you're fired. No job, no paycheck. Think about your kid." The mention of Lily was a knife to her heart, but Emily didn't flinch. She thought of her daughter's quiet praise for her autumn poster, like something you'd see in a real gallery, and the fragile trust they'd started to rebuild. She couldn't let Lily see her back down, not now. "I'm not bluffing," Emily said, holding up the USB drive. "These files prove it's mine. I'm meeting the client today to show them the truth. You can't stop me." Greg's face reddened, his hands clenching into fists. "You're making a big mistake," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Go ahead, try it. You'll be out of a job by tomorrow." He turned back to his computer, dismissing her with a wave, but Emily saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. She'd rattled him, and that gave her a surge of courage. She left his office, her legs shaky but her resolve firm. The rest of her shift was a blur, her mind racing as she prepared for the client meeting. She'd called the real estate firm's marketing director, a woman named Rachel, and pitched a meeting to discuss additional design options. Rachel had agreed, intrigued by Emily's confidence. Now, as Emily drove to the firm's office in downtown Columbus, her portfolio and proof files on the USB drive, her heart pounded with a mix of fear and defiance. This was her chance to take control, to show the world, and herself, what she was capable of. The real estate firm's office was a stark contrast to the print shop, all glass and steel, with a lobby that smelled of polished wood and fresh coffee. Emily adjusted her blazer, a thrift store find Sarah had helped her pick out, and took the elevator to the 10th floor. Her hands were clammy as she stepped into the marketing department, where Rachel, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a warm smile, greeted her. "Ms. Harper, good to see you," Rachel said, leading her to a conference room with a view of the Columbus skyline, the Scioto River glinting in the distance. Emily set up her laptop, her fingers trembling as she opened her portfolio. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice steadying as she spoke. "I'm a graphic designer, and I believe there's been a misunderstanding about the logo your firm received." She pulled up the stolen logo, its bold lines filling the screen, and walked Rachel through her proof, timestamps, original sketches, early drafts. "This is my design," she said, her voice firm. "It was submitted to you by my boss, Greg, who claimed credit. I'm here to set the record straight and offer my services directly." Rachel's expression shifted from curiosity to concern as she studied the files. "This is serious," she said, leaning forward. "We contracted with your shop based on this logo. If what you're saying is true, we need to address it." She paused, her eyes softening. "Your work is impressive, Emily. Why don't you show me more of your portfolio?" Emily's heart soared, a spark of hope igniting. She walked Rachel through her 5 portfolio pieces: the cityscape, the autumn barn, the music festival poster, each one a product of her late-night hours and the ex-community's feedback. Jake's suggestions on color palettes and Sarah's input on typography shone through, making the designs cohesive and vibrant. Rachel nodded, clearly impressed. "You've got talent," she said. "We're always looking for fresh designers. If your proof checks out, we'd be interested in working with you directly." Emily left the meeting on a high, her mind buzzing with possibility. Rachel had promised to investigate the logo theft and follow up, and the prospect of a direct contract felt like a lifeline. She messaged Jake and Sarah on X, just pitched to the client. "Showed them the proof and my portfolio. They're interested." Scared but hopeful. Jake replied, "That's huge. You owned it. Let me know how it goes." Sarah texted, "I knew you'd kill it. Dinner at my place to celebrate." But the hope was tempered by fear. Confronting Greg had been a gamble, and his threat to fire her was real. When she returned to the print shop for her afternoon shift, the tension was palpable. Greg avoided her, but his glares were icy, and she overheard him muttering to a coworker about troublemakers. Her mistake with the flyers and now this accusation had pushed him to the edge, and Emily knew her job was hanging by a thread. Losing it would mean no income, no way to secure a new apartment, no safety net for her and Lily. That night, Emily sat with Lily at the kitchen table, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Lily was doing homework, a rare moment of calm between them. "How's the gallery stuff going?" Lily asked, glancing up from her math book. Emily hesitated, then showed her the music festival poster. "It's due tomorrow," she said. "I'm nervous, but I think it's good." Lily studied it, her lips curving into a small smile. "It's awesome, Mom," she said, and Emily's heart warmed, the connection a balm to her fears. But as Lily went to bed, Emily opened her laptop, Greg's threat and the landlord's email looming large. The client meeting had been a triumph, but the fallout was coming. She saved her portfolio, naming the file Day 25 stand, and took a deep breath. Claire, Jake, Sarah, and even Lily believed in her, and the ex-community's support was a constant reminder of her progress. The 1-hour rule had brought her to this moment, but standing up for herself had raised the stakes to a breaking point. With her job and home on the line, Emily braced for the fight ahead, determined to claim her future, no matter the cost. Emily Harper stood in the sleek, white-walled gallery in Columbus's short north, her heart racing as the clock ticked towards 7 p.m. It was day 29 of her 1-hour rule experiment, and tonight was the culmination of her 30-day journey. Her graphic design work was being featured in Claire's gallery, a milestone she'd barely dared to dream of when she started. The gallery buzzed with anticipation, its polished wood floors reflecting the soft glow of track lighting, the air scented with lavender from diffusers tucked in the corners. 5 of Emily's pieces, posters and logos, including the vibrant cityscape and autumn barn, hung framed on the walls, their bold colors drawing gasps from early guests. But beneath her tailored blazer, a thrift store find pressed to perfection, Emily's nerves were frayed, a last-minute glitch threatening to unravel everything. The past week had been a whirlwind. After confronting Greg about the stolen logo and pitching directly to the real estate client, Emily had walked a tightrope. Greg's icy glares at the print shop signaled her job was on life support, and the landlord's email, lease not renewed, meant she and Lily had just days to find a new home. But the client, Rachel, had been impressed by Emily's portfolio and proof of ownership, promising to investigate the theft and consider a direct contract. Claire had received Emily's final portfolio with praise, securing her spot in tonight's group exhibition, a showcase for emerging artists. The ex-design community, led by Jake, had cheered her on, their comments, "You're gonna shine at that gallery." A constant boost. Sarah had helped her prep, and even Lily had shown quiet pride, her words. "It's awesome, Mom," fueling Emily's resolve. Now, as guests began to arrive, art collectors in sharp suits, local creatives in eclectic scarves, and curious passers-by lured by the gallery's open doors, Emily adjusted her posters, her hands trembling. Claire, elegant in a black dress, approached with a smile. "You've done well, Emily," she said, her voice warm but firm. "Tonight's about making connections. Your work stands out, but you need to sell yourself, too. Be ready to talk about your process." Emily nodded, her throat tight. "Thank you, Claire. For everything." The mentorship had been a lifeline, transforming her raw talent into something polished, cohesive. She'd spent her nightly hours refining her pieces, incorporating Jake's feedback on gradients and Sarah's suggestions on typography. The X-community's support had been her backbone, with Jake messaging just hours ago, "Break a leg tonight. Post pics on X, I wanna see those posters on the wall." Emily had replied, nervous but ready. "Thanks for believing in me." But as the gallery filled, a knot of fear tightened in her chest. She'd invited Lily, Sarah, and even her mother, Diane, hoping their presence would anchor her. Lily had promised to come, a small step toward rebuilding their bond, but Diane's attendance was a gamble. Her mother had always dismissed her art as a hobby. And then there was the glitch. The digital display meant to loop her portfolio on a large screen at the gallery's entrance was malfunctioning, stuck on a blank slide. The tech, a harried young man named Ethan, was tinkering with the system, muttering about a corrupted file. Without the display, Emily's work would lose its full impact, a blow she couldn't afford with collectors and critics in the room. She approached Ethan, her voice low but urgent. "Any luck?" she asked, glancing at the blank screen. "It's a mess," Ethan said, wiping sweat from his brow. "The file's glitching, and I can't get it to load. I'm trying a backup, but it might take an hour." An hour? The opening was in full swing, and Emily's stomach churned. She pictured the collectors drifting away, her chance slipping through her fingers like sand. As she turned back to the crowd, a familiar face appeared at the door, Sarah, her blonde hair glowing under the gallery lights, a wide grin on her face. This is incredible," she said, pulling Emily into a hug. "Your posters look amazing up there." Sarah's warmth was a spark of hope, easing the panic. She'd brought her husband, Tom, who nodded approvingly at the Autumn Barn poster. "You've got something special here," he said, and Emily's cheeks flushed with gratitude. Then, to her shock, Diane walked in, her nurse's scrubs traded for a navy dress, her expression guarded but softer than usual. "Mom," Emily said, her voice catching. "You came." Diane's eyes swept the gallery, lingering on the cityscape poster. "Sarah told me about it," she said, her tone hesitant. "I wanted to see for myself." She didn't smile, but the fact that she was here, in a gallery, looking at Emily's work, was a miracle. Emily's heart lifted, a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, her mother was starting to see her differently. But the biggest surprise was Lily, slipping through the crowd in her favorite hoodie, her dark hair tucked behind her ears. She looked nervous, her hazel eyes scanning the room until they found Emily. "Hey," Lily said, her voice soft. "This is, wow. Your stuff looks really good, Mom." The words were simple, but they hit Emily like a tidal wave, washing away weeks of doubt. Lily's presence, her quiet pride, was worth more than any sale. Emily pulled her into a quick hug, her eyes stinging. "Thanks for coming, kiddo," she whispered. Lily didn't pull away, and for a moment, the glitch, the eviction notice, Greg's threats. They all faded. Her community was here, Sarah, Diane, Lily, and the X-community was cheering from afar. She could do this. But the moment was shattered when Ethan approached, his face grim. Bad news, he said. The backup file's corrupted, too. I can't get the display working tonight. Emily's heart plummeted, the blank screen at the entrance like a gaping hole in her presentation. Without it, her portfolio's impact would be halved, and the collectors Claire had invited might overlook her work entirely. She glanced at the crowd, spotting a critic in a tweed jacket jotting notes, and panic surged. This was her shot, and it was slipping away. Claire, sensing the crisis, pulled Emily aside. Focus on the physical pieces, she said, her voice calm but urgent. Talk to the guests, tell your story. You're more than a digital display, you're the artist. Show them who you are. Her words were a lifeline, and Emily clung to them, nodding despite the fear clawing at her chest. She took a deep breath and approached a group of guests near her music festival poster, forcing a smile. Hi, I'm Emily Harper, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. This piece is inspired by Columbus's music scene, vibrant, bold, a little chaotic. To her surprise, they listened, asking about her process, her influences. One collector, a woman with silver hair, seemed particularly impressed. There's heart in your work, she said, handing Emily her card. Let's talk about a commission. Emily's heart soared, the interaction a spark of hope amidst the chaos. As the night wore on, more guests praised her work, and Sarah, Lily, and even Diane mingled, their presence a shield against her nerves. Diane, to Emily's shock, spoke to a critic about the cityscape, her voice proud, "My daughter created that." Lily stayed close, her quiet support a reminder of why Emily was fighting. But the blank screen haunted her, a reminder that the night wasn't perfect. When a local art blogger asked about the digital display, Emily faltered, mumbling about technical issues, and saw the blogger's interest wane. By 9 p.m., the crowd began to thin, and Emily's legs ached from standing, her emotions a tangle of triumph and fear. The collector's card, the praise, her family's support, they were victories, but the glitch had cost her, and Greg's threat still loomed. She messaged Jake on X, gallery opening was amazing but had a tech glitch. Got some interest, though. Thanks for the support. His reply was instant, you rocked it anyway. Glitches happen. Proud of you. As she helped Claire close up, Lily lingered by the Autumn Barn poster, her fingers tracing the frame. You did good, Mom, she said, and Emily's eyes welled up. The 1-hour rule had brought her here, to a gallery with her name on the wall, but the fight wasn't over. With her job on the line, her home gone, and the glitch's shadow lingering, Emily braced for the final day of her experiment, determined to hold on to the hope that had carried her this far. Emily Harper sat at her kitchen table, the morning light streaming through the window of her new Grove City apartment, a modest but cozy one-bedroom she'd secured just days ago. It was day 30 of her 1-hour rule experiment, the final day of her quest to dedicate 1 hour daily to learning graphic design, and the weight of the past month felt like a lifetime. The old apartment's eviction notice, the burst pipe, the stolen logo, they were scars of a battle she'd fought and survived. Her laptop, still humming with the glow of her portfolio, sat open to an email from Rachel, the real estate client, confirming a $5,000 freelance contract for a full branding package. It was enough to cover the new apartment's deposit and start rebuilding her savings, a victory born from the stolen logo confrontation that had nearly cost her everything. The new apartment smelled of fresh paint and possibility, a stark contrast to the damp, cluttered space she and Lily had left behind. Boxes were still stacked in the corner, but a framed print of her Autumn Barn poster hung on the wall, a gift from Claire after the gallery opening. The gallery night, despite the digital display glitch, had been a triumph. Collectors had praised her work, a commission was in talks, and Lily, Sarah, and even Diane had been there, their support a beacon through the chaos. Emily's heart swelled at the memory of Lily's quiet pride, "You did good, Mom," and Diane's unexpected words to a critic, "My daughter created that." The 1-hour rule had changed more than her career, it had reshaped her life. Emily sipped her coffee, the mug warm in her hands, and opened X on her phone. The design community had been her lifeline, their encouragement carrying her through doubt and despair. Her final post, shared last night, day 29. Gallery opening was a dream come true, despite a glitch. One day left in the 1-hour rule. Thank you all, especially. At Jake Creates. Had exploded with likes and comments. You're an inspiration, one user wrote. Proof that small steps lead to big wins, said another. Jake's reply was the most personal, you turned 1 hour a day into a whole new life. Proud to call you a friend. Emily smiled, messaging him, couldn't have done it without you. Drinks soon. His response was instant, name the place. The past month had been a roller coaster. The confrontation with Greg at the print shop, where she'd stood up for her stolen logo, had been a turning point. Greg had fired her the next day, his face red with fury, but Rachel's investigation confirmed Emily's ownership, and the real estate firm cut ties with the shop, offering her the contract instead. The $5,000 was a lifeline, but more than that, it was validation. She was a designer, not a wannabe. Claire's mentorship had polished her skills, her portfolio now a cohesive collection of vibrant, heartfelt pieces that had caught the eye of collectors. The ex-community, Jake's feedback, Sarah's unwavering support, they'd all been part of her transformation. But the real victory was personal. Emily glanced at Lily's bedroom door, where her daughter was still asleep after a late night unpacking. Their bond, strained by fights and Emily's obsession with the 1-hour rule, had started to heal. At the gallery, Lily's presence had been a quiet promise, and over the past week, they'd talked more, about school, about Lily's dreams of studying music, about the future. Emily had apologized again for being distant, and Lily had met her halfway, her hazel eyes softening. I'm proud of you, Mom, she'd said yesterday, helping hang the Autumn Barn poster. You didn't give up. Even Diane had surprised her. After the gallery, she'd called, her voice softer than Emily had ever heard. I was wrong about your art, Diane admitted. You've made something of yourself, Emily. I'm proud. The words, so rare from her mother, had brought tears to Emily's eyes. They'd met for coffee at Brood Awakening, the cafe's mismatched chairs a familiar comfort, and for the first time in years, they'd talked without arguing. Diane had even offered to help with the move, a gesture that felt like a bridge rebuilt. Emily opened her laptop, pulling up her portfolio to reflect on her journey. The cityscape, the music festival poster, the Autumn Barn, they were more than designs, they were proof of what 1 hour a day could do. She thought of a quote she'd read in a psychology article, shared by an ex-user in the design community. Small, consistent actions create profound change, said Dr. Angela Carter, a behavioral psychologist. Incremental progress builds not just skills but confidence and resilience. The 1-hour rule had done exactly that for Emily. It had taught her to trust herself, to fight for her dreams, to show Lily and Diane, and herself, that she was enough. She was about to close her laptop when her phone buzzed with a new email, the subject line stopping her cold, opportunity with Horizon Design Studio. Her breath caught. Horizon was a major design firm in Chicago, known for high-profile campaigns, movie posters, album covers, the kind of work she dreamed of in high school. Heart pounding, she opened the email. Dear Ms. Harper. We saw your work at Claire's gallery opening in Columbus and were impressed by your bold, heartfelt designs. We're seeking freelance designers for an upcoming project, and we'd like to discuss a potential contract. Please reply to schedule a meeting. Best regards, Laura Bennett, Creative Director, Horizon Design Studio. Emily stared at the screen, her hands trembling. A major design firm. Chicago. It was beyond anything she'd imagined when she started the 1-hour rule, a shock that felt like the universe rewarding her persistence. But it also raised new questions. Could she handle a high-stakes contract? Would it mean moving, disrupting Lily's life? The email was a climax, a thrilling twist that promised a future she'd barely dared to dream of, but it came with risks. She stood, pacing the small apartment, her mind racing. The $5,000 contract, the new apartment, the rebuilt bonds with Lily and Diane, they were victories, hard-won through 30 days of grit and hope. The 1-hour rule had changed her life, proving that small steps could lead to monumental shifts. Dr. Carter's quote echoed in her mind, "Incremental progress builds resilience." Emily was stronger now, ready to face whatever came next. She sat back down, typing a reply to Horizon, "Thank you for reaching out. I'd love to discuss the opportunity. Please let me know a convenient time for a meeting." Her finger hovered over the send button, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. She glanced at the Autumn Barn poster, its golden leaves a symbol of her journey, and hit send. As she closed her laptop, Lily emerged from her room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You're up early," she said, grabbing a cereal box from the counter. Emily smiled, her heart full. "Big day," she said. "How about we celebrate tonight? Pizza, just us." Lily's lips curved into a grin, a rare sight that made everything worth it. "Deal," she said. Emily leaned back, the morning light warming her face. The 1-hour rule was over, but its lessons would stay with her forever. She'd started with a desperate hope, a single hour to chase a dream, and ended with a new home, a new career, and a family rediscovered. The email from Horizon was a door to a future she couldn't yet see, but she was ready to walk through it, 1 hour at a time. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?